My brother is a sober companion for celebrities. I found his stash. He keeps them addicted to ensure he never loses his job. It all started because I was looking for a Band-Aid, a stupid, tiny, insignificant paper cut from one of the boxes I was helping him unpack. Liam had just moved into this new place, a glass-walled box in the sky that looked down on the entire city. It smelled like new leather and expensive cleaning supplies. He'd been talking it up for months, another perk of his latest high-profile client. "She's great, Chloe," he'd told me over the phone last week. "Really committed. This one's a keeper." A keeper. That's how he talked about people now, like they were contracts. Still, I was proud of him. My big brother, the one who used to get busted for smoking behind the bleachers, was now the guy the rich and famous trusted with their lives. He was saving them. Or so I thought. He was out for the night, a charity gala with the client, the actress Aria Vance. I was on dog-sitting duty for her little fluff ball of a terrier, Barnaby, who was currently asleep on a pillow that probably cost more than my rent. The cut on my finger was throbbing, a tiny drumbeat of annoyance. I knew Liam was meticulously organized, so I started in his new bathroom. The medicine cabinet was a work of art, everything alphabetized from antacids to zinc supplements. No first aid kit. I tried the kitchen, rummaging through a drawer full of artisanal whisks and gadgets I couldn't name. Nothing. Finally, I went to his bedroom, a space so minimalist and clean it felt like a hotel. The closet was the size of my own bedroom, filled with tailored suits and shoes that shone under the recessed lighting. I figured a travel kit, maybe, tucked away in a suitcase. That's when I saw it. On the top shelf, behind a row of shoe boxes for brands I'd only seen in magazines, was a simple black lockbox. It seemed out of place in his otherwise curated life. Curiosity is a funny thing. It's a quiet itch until it becomes a roar. I told myself the first aid kit had to be in there. It was a lie, and I knew it, but it was the only permission I needed. I looked around. Liam wasn't exactly a master of hiding things. He trusted his own intimidating presence to keep people out. The key was exactly where a teenager would hide it, taped to the underside of the shelf. My heart started to beat a little faster as I fumbled with the lock. It clicked open with a soft, metallic sigh. It wasn't a first aid kit. It was a pharmacy. Dozens of little amber and blue prescription bottles stood in neat rows, their labels meticulously scraped off with what looked like a razor blade. Tiny plastic baggies were sorted by color and size, filled with powders and pills I didn't recognize but instinctively knew were bad. There were even a few syringes still in their sterile plastic wrappers. It wasn't the chaotic mess of an addict. It was a collection. It was organized, cataloged, and terrifyingly deliberate. My stomach turned. This wasn't for him. Liam was a health nut. He drank kale smoothies and ran 10 miles before the sun came up. This was a toolkit, his work supplies. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, trying to find an explanation that didn't make my brother a monster. Maybe he confiscated it from his clients, a trophy case of their demons? But that didn't feel right. Why hide it? Why scrape the labels off? Then my eyes landed on a small leather-bound notebook tucked in the lid of the box. His handwriting, the same looping cursive he used to write my birthday cards, filled the pages. It wasn't a journal. It was a ledger. Dates, names, substances, and dosages, and a recurring column labeled MD, maintenance dose. My breath caught in my throat. I saw Aria Vance's name, a date from 3 days ago. Next to it, Oxy, 10 mg. Pre-event jitters. Administered 4 p.m. A few lines down for a different client from last year. Relapse initiated. Contract extended 6 months. The words swam in front of my eyes. He wasn't helping them get clean. He was managing their addiction. He was the dealer with the best cover in the world, the one they paid to live in their house and control their entire life. He was the source.
He was ensuring his own job security by making sure they could never, ever truly get better. The phone in my pocket buzzed, lighting up with his picture. Liam. He was calling me. I just stared at the screen, the box open on the floor in front of me, the whole world tilting on its axis. My thumb hovered over the glowing green icon, a single stupid button that could connect me to him. The buzzing stopped, replaced by a silence so complete it felt like a pressure in my ears. The air in the closet was thick with the smell of cedar and leather and something else, something metallic and cold that I knew was just my own fear. I had to put it back. I had to put everything back exactly as I found it. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely pick up the ledger. I fumbled it back into its slot in the lid, my fingers brushing against the smooth, cool leather. It felt like a snake. I closed the box, the latch clicking shut with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire apartment, a final, damning sound. The key, still slick with my sweat, was the hardest part. My fingers felt like clumsy sausages as I tried to retape it to the underside of the shelf, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. I finally got it to stick, then slid the box back into its hiding place, nudging the expensive shoeboxes in front of it until it was completely obscured. I had to erase myself. I had to pretend this moment never happened. I backed out of the closet, pulling the door shut slowly, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of my intrusion. The bed was still perfectly made, the rug undisturbed. It looked pristine, untouched, a lie. Just then, my phone buzzed again, this time with the soft chime of a new voicemail. I felt a fresh wave of nausea. I couldn't listen to it, not yet. I needed to get out of this room. This room, which had felt like a testament to my brother's success 30 minutes ago, now felt like a mausoleum. I walked back into the living room, my feet silent on the polished concrete floors. Barnaby lifted his head from the pillow, blinked his dark, beady eyes at me, and then laid his head back down with a soft sigh. Even the dog seemed oblivious, safe in this gilded cage. I sank onto the massive white sofa, my body feeling heavy and useless. I stared out at the city lights, a million tiny pinpricks of life, and felt utterly, completely alone. All those people down there, living their lives, had no idea about the monsters that walked among them, the ones who wore tailored suits and had kind smiles. My curiosity, that terrible, insistent itch, finally won. I had to know what he'd said. With a trembling finger, I played the voicemail. Liam's voice filled the quiet room, casual and warm, the voice I'd known my whole life. "Hey, Chloe, just leaving the gala now. Aria killed it. She's a star. Anyway, traffic looks decent, so I should be home in about 40 minutes. Hope Barnaby isn't driving you too crazy. See you soon." That was it. So normal, so mundane. The dissonance was dizzying. He was talking about Aria, praising her, just hours after he drugged her to get through the night. She's a star. Was that what he told himself? That he was just helping her shine? The hypocrisy was a physical thing, a bitter taste in the back of my throat. I had 40 minutes to become a different person. I had to become an actor, good enough to fool the man who managed them for a living. I had to be Chloe, his adoring little sister, dog-sitting in his beautiful new apartment, proud of everything he'd become. The sound of his key in the lock was a gunshot in the quiet. I jumped, my whole body tensing. I forced a smile onto my face as the door swung open, a smile that felt brittle and thin, like it might shatter. He walked in, all 6'2" of him, looking impossibly handsome in his tux. He was undoing his bow tie with one hand, a weary but satisfied smile on his face. He looked like a hero at the end of a movie. "Hey," he said, his voice tired but happy. "You survived." I managed a small laugh. It sounded hollow and strange in my own ears. "Barely. Barnaby is a terror." I gestured to the sleeping dog, a blatant lie. Liam chuckled, dropping his keys into a ceramic bowl by the door. "He's all bark, no bite. How was he really?" I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "He was perfect. Slept the whole time." My voice was steady. I was surprised by how steady it was. He walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the same view I had been. "It's incredible, isn't it?" he said, more to himself than to me. Sometimes I can't believe this is my life. I couldn't either. I just stood there, watching the back of his head, the man I thought I knew better than anyone in the world, and felt a chasm open up between us. He turned back to me, his expression softening. Arya was great tonight, a little on edge beforehand, but she pulled it together. She always does. He shrugged off his jacket, draping it over a chair. Nothing a little reassurance can't fix. Reassurance. Is that what he called it in his ledger? Was that the word he used for a measured dose of poison? My thumb hovered over the glowing green icon, a single, stupid button that could connect me to him. The buzzing stopped, replaced by a silence so complete it felt like a pressure in my ears. The air in the closet was thick with the smell of cedar and leather and something else, something metallic and cold, that I knew was just my own fear. I had to put it back. I had to put everything back exactly as I found it. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely pick up the ledger. I fumbled it back into its slot in the lid, my fingers brushing against the smooth, cool leather. It felt like touching a snake. I closed the box, the latch clicking shut with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire apartment. A final, damning sound. The key, still slick with my sweat, was the hardest part. My fingers felt like clumsy sausages as I tried to retape it to the underside of the shelf, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. I finally got it to stick, then slid the box back into its hiding place, nudging the expensive shoeboxes in front of it until it was completely obscured. I had to erase myself. I had to pretend this moment never happened. I backed out of the closet, pulling the door shut slowly, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of my intrusion. The bed was still perfectly made, the rug undisturbed. It looked pristine, untouched. A lie. Just then, my phone buzzed again, this time with the soft chime of a new voicemail. I felt a fresh wave of nausea. I couldn't listen to it. Not yet. I needed to get out of this room. This room, which had felt like a testament to my brother's success 30 minutes ago, now felt like a mausoleum. I walked back into the living room, my feet silent on the polished concrete floors. Barnaby lifted his head from the pillow, blinked his dark, beady eyes at me, and then laid his head back down with a soft sigh. Even the dog seemed oblivious, safe in this gilded cage. I sank onto the massive white sofa, my body feeling heavy and useless. I stared out at the city lights, a million tiny pinpricks of life, and felt utterly, completely alone. All those people down there living their lives had no idea about the monsters that walked among them, the ones who wore tailored suits and had kind smiles. My curiosity, that terrible, insistent itch, finally won. I had to know what he'd said. With a trembling finger, I played the voicemail. Liam's voice filled the quiet room, casual and warm, the voice I'd known my whole life. Hey, Chloe. Just leaving the gala now. Arya killed it. She's a star. Anyway, traffic looks decent, so I should be home in about 40 minutes. Hope Barnaby isn't driving you too crazy. See you soon. That was it. So normal, so mundane. The dissonance was dizzying. He was talking about Arya, praising her, just hours after he drugged her to get her through the night. She's a star. Was that what he told himself? That he was just helping her shine? The hypocrisy was a physical thing, a bitter taste in the back of my throat. I had 40 minutes to become a different person. I had to become an actor, good enough to fool the man who managed them for a living. I had to be Chloe, his adoring little sister, dog-sitting in his beautiful new apartment, proud of everything he'd become. The sound of his key in the lock was a gunshot in the quiet. I jumped, my whole body tensing. I forced a smile onto my face as the door swung open, a smile that felt brittle and thin, like it might shatter. He walked in, all 6'2" of him, looking impossibly handsome in his tux. He was undoing his bow tie with one hand, a weary but satisfied smile on his face. He looked like a hero at the end of a movie. "Hey," he said, his voice tired but happy. "You survived." I managed a small laugh. It sounded hollow and strange in my own ears. "Barely. Barnaby is a terror. I gestured to the sleeping dog, a blatant lie. Liam chuckled, dropping his keys into a ceramic bowl by the door. He's all bark, no bite. How was he really? I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. He was perfect, slept the whole time. My voice was steady. I was surprised by how steady it was. He walked over to the floor-ceiling window, looking out at the same view I had been. "It's incredible, isn't it?" he said, more to himself than to me. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life." I couldn't either. I just stood there, watching the back of his head, the man I thought I knew better than anyone in the world, and felt a chasm open up between us. He turned back to me, his expression softening. Aria was great tonight. A little on edge beforehand, but she pulled it together. She always does. He shrugged off his jacket, draping it over a chair. Nothing a little reassurance can't fix. Reassurance. Is that what he called in his ledger? Was that the word he used for a measured dose of poison? My own voice came out, a thin, reedy thing that didn't sound like me at all. Yeah, that's good. It was a pathetic response, but it was all I could manage. The chasm between us wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a physical reality, 100-mile-wide canyon of silence and secrets. He didn't seem to notice. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up just enough to look artfully disheveled. "Want a drink?" I think I earned one. He walked toward the sleek, minimalist bar cart in the corner, its glass and chrome surfaces gleaming under the track lighting. He was already reaching for a heavy crystal tumbler before I could answer. I just nodded, my throat too tight for words. I needed something to do with my hands, something to hold on to that wasn't the jagged edge of my own panic. It wasn't the voice of a grieving friend. It was the voice of a man whose carefully constructed wall had just been tested for weakness. I don't know, I stammered, my heart beginning to race. I had gone too far. You were talking about the pressure, and I just thought of him. I'm sorry. He stared at me for a long moment, his gaze intense, searching. I felt like a bug under a microscope. I forced myself not to look away, to hold his gaze, to project an innocence I no longer possessed. My whole body was screaming at me to run. Finally, he looked down into his glass. "It was a tragedy," he said, the flatness still in his voice. "Julian was fighting a war I couldn't win for him. Nobody could." He tossed back the rest of his drink in one swallow. "I'm heading to bed. It's been a long night." He stood up. The moment broke in, the danger seemingly past. But I knew something had changed. A seed of suspicion had been planted. He walked me to the door, the easy camaraderie from before completely gone, replaced by a tense, formal quiet. He put his hands on my shoulders, and this time I didn't flinch. I just froze. "Thanks for watching Barnaby," he said. "Get home safe, okay?" He tried for a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I gave him a quick, stiff hug. It felt like embracing a statue. All I could feel was the cold, hard truth of him beneath the expensive fabric of his shirt. As I walked down the silent, carpeted hallway toward the elevator, I felt his eyes on my back. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just kept walking, my footsteps silent, my mind screaming. The lie I was living had begun. But I had a terrible feeling that he knew. Not what I'd found, not the specifics, but he knew something was wrong. And a man like Liam, a man who controlled everything and everyone so meticulously, wouldn't let that go. I hadn't just discovered his secret. I had made myself a part of it. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft, final thud, sealing me in the mirrored box. I stared at my reflection, a pale, wide-eyed stranger who looked like she'd just seen a ghost. Maybe I had. The ghost of the brother I thought I knew. All the way down those 30 floors, I didn't breathe. I just listened to the whisper of the cables and the frantic thumping of my own heart. I half expected the doors to open at the ground floor and find him standing there, his face a cold mask, ready to demand what was really going on. But the lobby was empty, a cavern of marble and silence. The doorman gave me a polite nod as I pushed through the revolving door, and the blast of cold night air was a relief, a shock that reminded me I was still real, still moving. The walk to my car in the sterile, brightly lit garage felt like a mile. Every footstep echoed. I fumbled with my keys, my hand shaking badly. It took 3 tries to unlock the door. As I slid inside and locked it again, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. It came out as a ragged, whimpering sob. I rested my forehead against the cold steering wheel. The lie not just begun, but alive and growing inside me, a poisonous vine wrapping around my ribs. Driving home was an exercise in pure instinct. My body knew the route, my hands and feet moving on their own, while my mind was stuck back in his apartment, replaying that moment. The way his smile had evaporated, the way the light in his eyes had just switched off. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was colder than that. It was the look of a predator whose prey had done something unexpected. I had tipped my hand. Asking about Julian was a stupid, reckless mistake. I wasn't ready. I had no plan, no endgame. I was just a raw nerve, and I twitched at the wrong time. I saw it now with sickening clarity. Liam's empathy, his charm, his entire persona was a tool, a carefully calibrated instrument he used to manage people, to get what he wanted. And when it was challenged, even in the smallest way, the instrument was put away and the cold, hard machinery beneath was exposed. He hadn't just lied about Julian, he had performed a lie, and I had interrupted the performance. My small apartment had never felt less safe. I locked the deadbolt and slid the chain across, flimsy precautions that felt laughably inadequate. I went through the motions of getting ready for bed, but it was all an act. My skin crawled. I kept picturing him letting himself in with the spare key I'd given him years ago, finding me asleep. I walked into my closet and pulled out the shoebox from the top shelf, the one filled with old birthday cards and photos. Tucked underneath the stack of them was the ledger. My fingers trembled as I touched the smooth leather cover. This was real. The neatly inked columns of names, dates, and dosages. It was the only thing that proved I wasn't losing my mind. I thought about what to do with it. Go to the police? Who would believe me? The word of a distraught sister against a beloved public figure with a team of expensive lawyers? They'd paint me as unstable, jealous, vindictive. Liam would make sure of it. He controlled narratives for a living. Destroying mine would be child's play. I couldn't sleep. The silence in my apartment was buzzing with unasked questions. I sat on my sofa in the dark, the glow of my laptop screen casting long shadows on the wall. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and then, with a sense of grim inevitability, I typed Julian Croft. I scrolled past the official obituaries, the glossy magazine tributes, the heart-wrenching interview Liam had given. I clicked onto the 2nd, 3rd, 10th page of search results, diving into the murky depths of the internet where rumors and forgotten stories lived. I found old fan forums, comment sections on year-old news articles, Reddit threads archived and left to gather digital dust. It was mostly noise. But then I found it. A comment on a music blog post from 18 months ago buried under dozens of others. It was from an anonymous user. The whole relapse story is BS, it read. I was on his tour crew. Julian was desperate to get clean, fired half his team a week before he died, said they were keeping him sick. He was trying to get away from his handler, the slick suit who was always with him, but the guy wouldn't leave him alone. He was terrified of him. A handler? A slick suit? It had to be him. It had to be. This wasn't a case of my brother simply failing to save someone. This was darker. Julian had been trying to escape. He had seen Liam for what he was and had tried to get out, and Liam hadn't let him. The thought was so monstrous, I felt like I was going to be sick. He hadn't just let Julian die. He had actively prevented him from living. He had cornered him. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, a sudden violent sound in the quiet room. My whole body jumped. I looked at the screen, my blood turning to ice. It was a text from Liam. Just landed, crazy flight, glad we got to catch up tonight, felt like we needed it. My breath hitched. He wasn't in bed. He had lied. He was somewhere else on a plane, but he had pretended to be turning in for the night. Why? The follow-up message appeared before I could process the first one. Let's talk again soon, for real this time. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a summons. He knew. He knew something was wrong, and he was coming to fix it. And I had a horrifying feeling that Liam's way of fixing things was to make them disappear. The phone felt hot in my hand, a conduit of his cold, calculated words. Just landed. The casual lie was a punch to the gut. He wasn't in his pristine apartment sleeping off a day of managing the fragile egos of the rich and famous. He was somewhere else entirely, moving pieces on a board I couldn't even see. The second text was the real message, the one meant to slide between my ribs like a shiv. Let's talk again soon. For real this time. The implication was clear. The performance was over. He knew I was lying, and my clumsy attempt at subterfuge had been noted, logged, and filed away. He was coming for the truth. I dropped the phone on the sofa cushion as if it were burning me. My apartment, my little sanctuary, suddenly felt like a glass box. He had a key. He could be here in an hour, a day, a week, smiling that disarming smile as he walked through the door to dismantle my life. I was on my feet without making a conscious decision to move. Panic, cold and sharp, was a physical force propelling me toward my bedroom. I pulled a duffel bag from the back of my closet, the one I used for weekend trips, and started throwing things in. A few t-shirts, jeans, a toothbrush. My hands were shaking so violently, I dropped it twice. What was I doing? Running? Where would I even go? It didn't matter. The imperative was simple. Get out. Get out before he decides to talk for real. I went back to the living room and grabbed the ledger from its hiding place. It felt heavy, dense, with secrets. This was the reason for all of this. The slim black book was my truth, my burden, and my only possible weapon. I shoved it deep into the bag under a sweater. Then I went to the small ceramic bowl by the door where I kept my keys. I picked out my set, leaving his spare sitting there, a single, solitary key. A final, pathetic act of defiance. You can't come in here anymore. The gesture felt hollow, even as I made it. A man like Liam doesn't need a key to get where he wants to go. The engine of my car turned over with a reassuring rumble in the cavernous silence of the parking garage. I didn't have a destination. I just drove, merging onto the freeway, letting the river of red and white lights carry me away from the city center. Every car that stayed behind me for more than a couple of miles became a threat. Was it him? Had he sent someone? I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, my heart hammering against my ribs, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The paranoia was a living thing, breathing in the passenger seat beside me. After an hour of aimless driving, my adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. I pulled off the highway in a nameless suburb, a sprawl of strip malls and fast food chains glowing under the sickly orange sky. I found what I was looking for a few blocks later, a motel with a flickering neon sign that read vacancy. It was the kind of place you paid for in cash, where no one asked for ID, and the clerk behind the bulletproof glass looked too tired to care who you were or what you were running from. The room smelled of bleach and old cigarette smoke. I locked the door, bolted the chain, and jammed a chair under the knob for good measure. I sank onto the stiff polyester bedspread and finally allowed myself to breathe. The frantic terror began to recede, and in its place, a cold, hard resolve started to form. Running wasn't enough. Hiding wouldn't last. He would find me. He was good at finding things, at finding people. I couldn't just wait for him to show up. I had to do something. I had to fight back. I pulled out my laptop and the ledger. I opened the browser and went back to that music blog, to that anonymous comment. I was on his tour crew, the person had written. He was trying to get away from his handler. I had to find this person. It was a desperate, impossible long shot, but it was the only shot I had. I started digging. I searched for Julian Croft final tour crew list. I found articles, fan sites, production company press releases. I found names. Lighting designers, sound engineers, roadies, guitar techs. A sea of faces from 2 years ago. I started cross-referencing the names with social media, looking for anyone who might still be talking, anyone who seemed to have left the industry,
anyone who sounded bitter. Hours bled together. My eyes burned from the screen's glare. Then I found him, a sound tech named Kevin. His profile was public. A few angry, cryptic posts from around the time of Julian's death about the vultures in the music business, and then nothing. He was working as an electrician now, according to his profile. He lived 3 states away. I created a new, anonymous email address. My fingers trembled as I typed. I kept it short, vague enough to be deniable, specific enough to catch his attention. "I'm looking for information about Julian Croft's final days," I wrote. "I read an old comment you may have written about his handler. I believe you. I think he was in danger. Please, if you know anything, I need your help." I stared at the blinking cursor for a full minute, my heart pounding. Then I took a deep breath and clicked send. The email vanished into the digital ether, a tiny flare sent up in the vast, overwhelming darkness. And then there was only waiting. The waiting was a physical presence in the room. It was in the low, rattling hum of the air conditioner, the faint scent of stale coffee from a previous occupant, the relentless ticking of the digital clock on the bedside table. Every minute stretched into an eternity. I sat on the edge of the bed, my laptop open, the sent email folder a testament to my desperate gamble. I refreshed the page every 30 seconds, then every 10, my hope dwindling with each empty inbox. The silence was worse than the noise of the city. Out here, in this anonymous box on the side of a highway, the silence was a vacuum, and my own frantic thoughts rushed in to fill it. Liam's texts echoed in my head. For real this time. He knew. He didn't know what exactly, but he knew the game had changed. He knew I had crossed a line, and Liam wasn't one for letting things go. He was a fixer. He'd tidied up messes, and right now, I was the biggest mess in his life. My phone buzzed on the bedspread, a sudden violent sound in the quiet room. My whole body jumped. I looked at the screen, my blood turning to ice. It wasn't an email notification. It was an incoming call. The name on the screen made my breath hitch in my throat. Liam. For a moment, I just stared at the picture of us from years ago, smiling on a beach, 2 people who no longer existed. My first instinct was to throw the phone against the wall, to silence him, but I knew that would be a mistake. Ignoring him would only confirm his suspicions, would only make him more determined. With a hand that felt like it belonged to someone else, I swiped to answer. I held the phone to my ear, but I didn't speak. I let the silence hang there, a challenge. "Hey," he said. His voice was warm, casual, the same voice he used to charm producers and soothe panicked starlets. The sound of it made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. "You there?" "I'm here," I managed to say. My voice was a dry rasp. "Good. I was getting worried. You didn't answer my texts," he said. There was a faint smile in his tone, a hint of condescending amusement. "You just disappeared. That's not like you." "I needed some air," I lied. The words tasted like ash. "Just went for a drive." "A long drive," he noted. The warmth in his voice was chilling. It was a performance. I stopped by your place a little while ago. To talk. For real, you know?" He chuckled. A soft, predatory sound. "But you weren't there." "You left my key on the counter. Was that supposed to be a message?" I didn't answer. My throat had closed up. He had been there. He had been in my apartment, walking through my space, touching my things, knowing I was gone. The violation of it felt physical. "Look," he continued, his voice shifting, taking on a tone of sincere, brotherly concern that was more terrifying than any threat. "I don't know what's gotten into you. I don't know what you think you found or what you think you're doing, but this is a mistake. You're in over your head." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you," he said, the warmth evaporating completely, leaving behind cold, hard steel. "Whatever it is, we can fix it.
I can fix it, but you have to come back. You have to talk to me. Hiding in some flea bag motel isn't going to solve anything. Just tell me where you are. I'll come get you. We'll sort it out." He knew. He didn't say how, but he knew. He was tracking me. The thought sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. "I'm fine, Liam. I just need some time," I said, trying to sound firm, but my voice trembled. There was a long pause. I could hear the faint sound of traffic in the background on his end. He was in a car. He was moving. He was hunting. "Okay," he said finally, his voice dangerously soft. "Have your time, but understand this. You're my family, and I protect my family. Sometimes that means protecting them from themselves. I'll be in touch." He hung up. I pulled the phone away from my ear, my hand shaking uncontrollably. He hadn't just been in my apartment, he was actively looking for me. The walls of the motel room felt like they were shrinking, the air growing thin and hard to breathe. The illusion of safety was gone. I wasn't hiding. I was just a rabbit in a field waiting for the hawk to descend. Just as the despair threatened to swallow me whole, a different sound chimed from my laptop. A soft electronic ping. My head snapped toward the screen. A new email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was blank. My heart hammered against my ribs as I clicked it open. It was just one sentence. "Who is this, and what be you want with Julian?" My fingers were ice. I typed back, my mind racing to find the right words, the perfect combination of truth and caution. I couldn't sound like a cop or a journalist. I had to sound like something else, something Kevin might understand. I had to sound like a victim. "My name doesn't matter. Julian was a friend. I was there when he started trying to get clean. I saw his handler, your old boss, working on him. I know what he does. I think he did something to Julian. I think he crossed a line and I can't prove it. You're the only person I could find who seemed to see it too. I'm not looking for trouble. I'm looking for the truth." I hit send, my breath held tight in my chest. The reply came back almost instantly. This time, it was a string of numbers, a phone number. "Call me one time, use a burner." I fumbled with the cheap disposable phone I'd bought at a gas station, my hands shaking so badly I misdialed twice. On the third try, it rang. Once, twice, a click, and then a gruff, wary voice on the other end. "Yeah?" It was Kevin. I could tell from the weary rasp in his voice. I told him who I was, that Liam was my brother, that I'd found the stash, the ledgers, the whole sick system. I told him about the phone call, about Liam hunting me. I didn't know why I was being so honest, but I felt like it was my only move left. My desperation was the only currency I had. I could hear him breathing on the other end, the sound of a man weighing a life-altering decision. When my 60 seconds were up, he didn't hang up. "He was going to leave," Kevin said, his voice low and cracked with an old anger. "Julian. He was done. He'd lined up a rehab facility, a private one, paid for it himself. He was going to fire your brother. He told him so the night before he died." A cold, heavy dread settled in my stomach. "What happened?" I whispered. "Liam wouldn't just let a client walk away." Kevin let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "Walk away? That's not the word for it. Julian was going to expose him. He had a meeting with his manager and a lawyer the next day. He was going to tell him everything. How your brother kept him sick, how he controlled his access to his own family. He was taking his life back." The pieces clicked into place, forming a picture more monstrous than I had ever imagined. This wasn't just about a job. It was about survival. Liam's survival. "That last night," Kevin continued, his voice dropping even lower, as if the walls could hear, "I was doing a final sound check on Julian's home studio setup. I saw your brother go into his room. He had Julian's supply, the usual stuff he used to keep him level, but he was acting weird, shifty. He told me to clear out, said Julian needed his rest. I saw the look on his face, man. I'll never forget it. It was calm. Too calm. Like a butcher about to do a job." My heart stopped.
"What are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew. "I'm saying," Kevin said, his voice thick with guilt and fury, "that your brother didn't just let him die. Julian had a high tolerance. We all knew that. He wouldn't have accidentally taken a fatal dose of his usual stuff. It's impossible. Your brother walked in there with a plan to fix a problem. He walked out, and a few hours later, Julian Croft was just another rock and roll tragedy. I quit the next day. I couldn't prove a thing, and who would believe a roadie over a high-priced companion to the stars? I just got out." The line went dead. He was gone. I stood in the middle of the silent motel room, the burner phone slipping from my numb fingers and clattering to the floor. It wasn't just enabling. It wasn't just a sick, parasitic relationship. It was murder. My brother was a murderer. A quiet, efficient killer who wore bespoke suits and had a charming smile. And then, as if summoned by the thought, I heard it. The crunch of tires on the gravel outside my door, a car engine cutting out. My blood ran cold. I crept to the window, peering through a slit in the cheap curtains. It was his car, the sleek black sedan he was so proud of. He was here. He'd found me. A car door opened and closed. Heavy, confident steps approached my door. I backed away from the window, my body trembling. There was nowhere to run. The knock was quiet, almost polite. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I opened the door. He stood there, silhouetted against the dim parking lot lights. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. He wasn't smiling. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice soft. I stepped back, and he walked past me into the room, his presence sucking all the air out of the small space. He looked around at the cheap furniture, the unmade bed, my laptop still open on the table. "This is a new low," he said, not unkindly. "Whatever this is, it ends now. You're coming home." I just looked at him, seeing him for the first time, not as my brother, but as the calm, methodical butcher Kevin had described. "Julian was going to fire you," I said. My voice didn't shake. It was flat, dead. "He was going to expose you." Liam's face didn't change. He didn't flinch. He just watched me, his expression unreadable. "He was a problem," he said simply. "He was unstable, a liability to the label, to his band, to himself. I did what had to be done. I protected the asset. I protected us." The corporate, sanitized language made my stomach turn. He truly believed it. He saw no horror in what he'd done, only a necessary, if unpleasant, business decision. He took a step closer. "I know you talked to the sound tech," he said, and my last bit of hope died. "I know everything. Now you're going to give me that laptop and your phone, and you're going to get in the car with me. We're going to go home, and we are going to forget any of this ever happened. This is your one and only chance to walk away clean, because you are my family, and I will do anything to protect my family." He looked me right in the eye, and I finally understood the full weight of his words. It wasn't a promise. It was the exact same threat he'd given Julian Croft. So what do you do when the monster you've been hunting is the only family you have left? Let us know in the comments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. I post new stories every day.